With that, we bring in Marc Thiessen, Fox News contributor, and Jose Aristimuno, former DNC deputy press secretary and CEO of VIP Media Solutions. Jose, to you first. Do you think that Democrats should stand firm on this and move forward? We have a wall we can put up of the Democrats who support this. Do you think they should shut down the government over this issue?
Well, no. I think the short answer is no, Martha. I think we should, people in Washington need to start acting like adults, and the government, including the president and members of Congress, need to act, lead by example. So no, I don't think we need to shut down the government over this, but that goes without saying that we need to reform DHS. What's happening with ICE is out of control. We gotta admit, obviously, that protesters are getting out of hand as well. We need to tone down the temperature on both sides, both Democrats, Republicans. But at the end of the day, this falls on the president. The president needs to lead by example. I'm glad to see, by the way, Tom Hanks going to Minneapolis and talking to Tim Walz. I think that's a step in the right direction.
Okay, let's put up now the lead editorials in all of the major newspapers with almost the same headline across the board, Mark. Time for ICE to pause in Minneapolis. That's the Wall Street Journal. You can see the New York Post cover as well, and you can see the New York Times and the Washington Post, all pretty much in agreement that it is time to make changes in the way this whole situation is going. And here's John Fetterman just moments ago posting this: Miss Good and Mr. Preddy should still be alive. My family grieves for theirs. The operation in Minneapolis should stand down immediately and immediately end. It has become an ungovernable and dangerous urban theater for civilians and law enforcement that is incompatible with the American spirit. Mark, your reaction to this turn since Saturday morning?
So I agree, nobody wants to see what's happening on the streets of Minnesota happening. But the cause is sanctuary city policies. It is Tom Homan has made clear that he wants to focus on deporting people with criminal records, right? And the government in Minnesota is refusing. And in Minneapolis, it's a sanctuary state. They're not cooperating with that. And so Tom Homan the DHS has to go in and carry out these raids that have collateral arrests, that are going into the communities, that are putting people in danger because of the resistance of the state, and then the response of Minnesota is not to cooperate with ICE to get the people they want to get, but to encourage people to protest, which is putting people's lives at risk. So the blood is on the hands of Tim Walz and the officials in Minnesota who won't cooperate. And one last point, Martha. I don't remember these protests when Barack Obama deported 3 million people from America. And I looked it up. The Pew Research Center found the majority of the people that Barack Obama deported had no criminal records other than immigration violations.
But
so
also,
there were no
Mark,
protests.
most of those were at the border,
nobody's shutting down the government.
Mark, those were at the border. Primarily, they were at the border.
Not all at the border. But not all. But the point is, the left was not attacking Barack Obama. They were not shutting down the government. They were not cutting funding for DHS. This is only because Donald Trump is doing it. Yeah. And Donald Trump had a mandate to do what he's doing because he was elected on this. 90% of Americans want everybody with a criminal record deported. So Mark, if we can focus on that, that solves it.
I mean, even President Trump has said that he wants a full investigation of this. The tone, excuse me, is very different than it was after the Renee Good situation, which, seemed to be different in a lot of ways. So you can sense that the White House feels that this is something that they need to make some changes in, regardless of all of the good reasons that you're pointing out. Quickly, Jose, your reaction to this, because we know that shutting down the border was is very popular. People do not want people who came in here illegally to be able to cross the border, and in most cases to stay here if they're criminals, certainly.
No, I agree, and I will say one of the main reasons President Biden lost Kamala Harris, for that matter, and the Biden administration lost the election is because the border was not secure. Yeah. So I'm with you, and I'm with Republicans on that the border security needs to be an issue, but that goes without saying that what's happening right now in Minneapolis is out of hand. No U.S. citizen should be killed by an ICE official, and this needs to change. We need to hold ICE officials accountable.
You agree with Mark's point, I would assume, Jose, that none of this would be happening if you didn't have leadership in the governor's mansion in Minneapolis and also in the mayor's office egging this on. It's not happening in other places. Quick thought, Jose.
I would say it's both issues. I think Republicans, Democrats. I think the governor, it's responsible. I think the president is responsible for some of the rhetoric in the past. But we got to put country first. This is one of those moments that we got to come together, Martha.
Well, all the editorial pages seem to agree, which is very rare. With that point, Marc Thiessen, thank you very much. Jose Aristimuno, great to have you both here. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.